Check your kitchen right now. You probably have a refrigerator humming in the corner, keeping your food from rotting. You think it's a miracle of modern safety. But for over 300,000 years, that humming box didn't exist. Your ancestors didn't just survive without it, they engineered ways to preserve meat for months in conditions that would starve a modern human in a week. To understand exactly what they did, you have to understand the sheer, terrifying scale of the problem. When you go to the grocery store, you buy 10 pounds of neat, plastic-wrapped food. When Paleolithic hunters brought down a woolly mammoth 25,000 years ago, they got a collapsing mountain of muscle, fat, and bone, up to 2,000 pounds of raw, bleeding meat all at once. And the clock started immediately. Nature has a fundamental rule. All dead things must return to the earth. The moment that animal hit the ground, invisible rot began breaking down the cellular walls. Bacteria multiplied. Wolves caught the scent. If that meat rots, your family starves in January. If the wolves smell it, you become the prey. You can't carry it all. You can't eat it all. So you have to hide it. You have to stop time. And you have to do it with nothing but rocks, dirt, and your bare hands. The popular image is that ancient humans just left food outside. It was the Ice Age, right? Just leave it in the snow. But freezing is incredibly dangerous. Leave meat exposed to ambient air and it freeze-dries into an inedible block of wood. If the sun hits it, the outer layer thaws, bacteria blooms, and the rot takes over. Your ancestors knew this. They understood thermodynamics long before the word existed. Archaeologists excavating Paleolithic sites across Siberia keep finding the exact same structures. Deep, carefully excavated pits dug directly into the earth near winter settlements. These weren't graves, they were walk-in freezers. Your ancestors used bone tools to dig past the active topsoil down until they hit the permafrost. At that specific depth, the ground temperature is permanently sub-zero. It doesn't fluctuate. It remains totally static. But they didn't just throw meat in a hole. They lined these pits with flat stones and thick layers of dried moss. The moss acted as a precise insulator, creating a thermal barrier. Because cold air is denser than warm air, freezing temperatures pooled at the bottom, trapped by the moss. They built natural coolers. The exact same physical principles running the appliance in your kitchen right now, executed flawlessly with dirt and plants. But what if you didn't live on the frozen steppe? What if you lived in North America, hunting mastodons near the Great Lakes 12,000 years ago, where the ground wasn't permanently frozen? This is where human ingenuity gets absolutely staggering. In the late 1980s, paleontologist Daniel Fisher studied mastodon remains in Michigan. The bones weren't scattered by scavengers, they were intact, buried in the muck of ancient ponds and deliberately pinned down by heavy rocks. These weren't accidental drownings, they were underwater storage facilities. To prove it, Fisher anchored butchered draft horse meat to the bottom of a freezing pond, exactly how the ancients did it. He left it there for months, all the way into spring. When he pulled it up, it hadn't rotted. It smelled sour. It was completely safe to eat. Here is why. Sink meat into a cold, low-oxygen environment, and the normal aerobic bacteria that cause putrefaction suffocate. Instead, a completely different microscopic ecosystem takes over. Lactobacillus. This is the exact same bacteria we use today to make yogurt and sourdough bread. The lactobacillus colonized the meat, producing lactic acid. The acid rapidly dropped the pH level, creating an environment so incredibly harsh that rotting bacteria couldn't penetrate it. Pathogens died on contact. Your ancestors engineered a massive underwater fermentation tank. By precise observation of how biology interacts with water, they made ancient probiotic yogurt meat that kept them alive when the snow was 10 feet deep. But winter doesn't last forever. When the temperature rises, ice melts. How do you stop 1,000 pounds of food from turning to poison in the July sun? You remove the water. Bacteria requires moisture to multiply. Take the water out and you take away the bacteria's ability to live. But leave raw meat sitting out and maggots will take over within hours. So, humans invented the smokehouse. We think of smoked barbecue as a flavor profile. For 300,000 years, smoke was a weapon against death. When you build a fire with green wood, it produces thick smoke containing complex chemical compounds like formaldehyde and acetic acid. When that smoke washes over thinly sliced meat, it does two things simultaneously. First, the low heat gently evaporates the moisture, dehydrating it completely. Second, the chemicals in the wood smoke bind directly to the surface. It literally forms an acidic, antimicrobial skin of poison that kills bacteria and repels insects on contact, while leaving the protein perfectly safe for digestion. They had no microscopes, but they mapped the exact chemical reaction needed to build a force field around their food. A properly smoked piece of meat can last for years at room temperature. No electricity, no coolants, no humming boxes. This is what we continually fail to understand about the people who came before us. We look at the Stone Age and see primitives struggling in the dirt, waiting for the Industrial Revolution to save them. But they weren't waiting for us. They were biochemists. They were thermal engineers. They understood the exact, delicate relationship between temperature, moisture, wood smoke, and bacterial growth. And they used that knowledge to rewrite the rules of survival. They looked at the inevitability of decay and they simply paused it. Today, we consider ourselves the apex of human intelligence. But if the power grid goes down tomorrow, most of us wouldn't know how to keep a single steak from rotting by Friday. We traded deep knowledge of the physical world for convenience. We outsourced our survival to a fragile system of copper wires and chemical refrigerants we don't truly understand and cannot repair ourselves. Check your kitchen again. Listen to that humming sound in the corner. It's keeping you alive, but it's also giving you the freedom to forget how the world actually works. You didn't conquer decay, you just plugged a box into a wall and let someone else handle it. Your ancestors didn't have a plug. They had nothing but the cold, the smoke, and a brutal, magnificent brilliance that we have almost entirely lost, and they never let it rot.